Well, we are wrapping up our series today for the month of December. This has been a wonderful series, at least in my heart, that we've taken up on this month. And as we wrap it up today, I would say I've been looking forward to this message the most as we really bring 2017 to a conclusion. I've been looking forward to this message because I believe that it's something that we need to hear. I think that it's something that God desires to prepare us for this year to come. So I'm going to start with a question and simply ask you, what would you like 2018 to be like? I've been talking about it as the best year ever. And you might be saying, well, how in the world can that be? How can we just say that? How can we declare something like that? Well, I want you to know that I'm putting it out there, okay? I am putting it out there that I believe that 2018, for your life, for your family, for my life, my family, for the church, for our community, is going to be and can be the best year ever. Now, it's not going to happen by accident. I realize that. So there are some things that need to happen. We need to ask ourselves, well, what do I need to do? How do I need to be involved in this in order that it can be the best year ever? And so this morning I want to challenge you with three things that I think that if we will personally implement in our own lives, if they are things that we will address in our own lives, that 2018 can and will be the best year ever. And the first one is this. And these are going to be statements that in and of themselves, they will not make sense. But when you put them all together, they're going to make sense. The first one is this. It's all about how you see it. How do you see things? Now, I know that God has made us different, okay? My wife and I, we see things differently. She happens to be out in the hub this morning. She's not feeling real good, but she would agree with me that we see things differently. I do not see the problems that lie ahead. I only see the good stuff, okay? And she sees the pitfalls and the potholes. And when we were young, I would say, honey, why not just decide to see things more positively? I thought it was just a decision that you could make. But God has made us differently and we see things differently. But when things happen in our lives, the question is, how do you see those things? Let me tell you a little story here about some folks that I had a chance to meet this week. You may have heard about them in the news. But their names are Dave and Lori Zoller. They are from Grand Rapids, Michigan. They were driving here to Marquette to attend their son Nicholas's graduation at NMU just earlier this month. And they were on their way. They were on M28. They were near Shingleton. And while Dave was driving, he lost control of the vehicle and they were in an accident. Dave had some injuries, but far less severe. Their vehicle went into the oncoming lane and they were struck by an oncoming vehicle. So you can imagine just how severe the accident was. Lori has had 4 surgeries since the accident just a couple of weeks ago. She broke 10 bones. When I walked into her hospital room, her arms are both casted and lying on pillows in her lap, and both of her legs below the knee are also casted. It's Christmas. She was in the hospital while her son graduated from college. I walked in the door, and immediately I knew that there was something different about this woman. There was a smile on her face a mile wide that you could not fake. I said this, and within 2 minutes of being in that room, I said to her family, I said, this woman has the Spirit of an overcomer. Her husband said, the staff at the hospital, they've said that her injuries are worse than any other injuries that they're caring for right now in the hospital, and yet she requires less work than most of the other patients. Why is that? I'll tell you why. It's because of how she sees it. It's because of her attitude. It's because of what she is looking at this situation to be. I reached out my hand, and her hands are on her lap. They're leaning on the pillows there, and she didn't even budge a finger, okay, as I reached out. And I just reached out and I lightly touched the back of her hand. She said, "It's okay, you can pet me." Now she's cracking jokes. Okay? She's cracking jokes after 4 surgeries, after 10 broken bones, after spending Christmas. Now listen, I like Christmas. I know you like Christmas. I like Marquette. You like Marquette, but nobody wants to spend Christmas in Marquette in the hospital, do you? Not me. And yet there is a smile on her face. You say, how is it possible? It's all in how you see it. Jesus in John chapter 16, verse 33, he says this, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Now, later, John the Apostle, who wrote those words, recorded those words of Jesus, in his letter, in his epistle, it's called, in 1 John chapter 5, verses 4 and 5, here's what he says years later. He said, "For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith." Who is it that overcomes the world? Look at this. The first word, only. Get your ears perked up. Who overcomes the world? Only the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. It's all in how we look at it. When he uses the word overcomer, it's the Greek word that we, in our English language, we use the word Nike or Nike. It's a shoe and an apparel company, okay? It means overcomer. It means to conquer, to carry off the victory, to come off victorious. In baseball, you would call that a walk-off home run. That's what it is, to be an overcomer, to literally carry up the victory off the field. Well, the Bible tells us that we are going to have trouble. There's one thing I will guarantee you, as sure as I'm standing here, when you reflect back on 2018, you will be able to identify that you have experienced trouble during this year, this coming year. You will be able to identify that. But Jesus has overcome the world. The word overcomer, it implies battle. And the Bible teaches us to recognize that the world is a battleground, not a McDonald's playland. There's going to be trouble. We're going to have battles that we face. So, how will you choose to look at those things? Will you simply see them as trouble, or will you see something else? I love James' words in James chapter 1 when he tells us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." You need to see those trials through a sense or the lens of being an overcomer through Jesus, who gives us the victory. And if 2018 is going to be the best year ever in life, then you need to see the victory and who gives it to you rather than focusing on the trial. It's all in how you look at it. Number 2, they said it couldn't be done. Anybody ever hear that before? I love that. I love it when people say that. In 1850, let me give you a little history here. In 1850, track and field officially began to keep time for the mile race. Do you know why they actually could do that? Because they actually established how far you had to run exactly. And it was 1.609344 kilometers. That's a mile. And they began keeping track of how fast people could run it. And in 1855, the world record for the mile was 4 minutes and 28 seconds. And then as time progressed, we get to 1913, and the world record is down to 4 minutes, 14.4 seconds. But it's taking decades for that number to keep coming down. In 1945, there was a runner from Sweden who pushed the record all the way down to 4 minutes and 1.4 seconds. And they kept trying to break this number, and they couldn't do it. And there were people that literally believed that this was an impossibility. It's just not possible for a human to run a sub 4 minute mile. And it just stayed there. But you know what? There were people that believed. And on May 6th, 1954, that which was previously thought to be physically impossible was challenged. 6 of the best runners in the world gathered together at a place called the Iffley Road and Track Field in Oxford, England. And one of those runners was a British medical student. That young man would become a world-renowned neurologist. His name was Roger Bannister. He believed. He recounts of the race that day. He said, "My legs seemed to be moving effortlessly as if impelled by an unknown force." Now that's a good way to run, okay? And that just doesn't happen training between the couch and the refrigerator. I want you to know that. But Bannister was so concerned. He was so concerned that the pace was too slow. That the pace runner, and if you didn't know this, in the mile, they actually put 1 or 2 pace runners in the field, and all they're supposed to do is set a fast pace so that it's possible for the race to break records, okay? And they literally drop out of the race somewhere on the 3rd lap, okay? Now, that doesn't... don't ask me to do that. I can't do that, okay? But that's what they have, a pace runner that does that. Bannister was so concerned that the pace was too slow to achieve a 4-minute mile that he actually began to yell at the pace runner in front of him, saying, "Faster!" Now, listen, that's just unreal. Okay, you're kind of giving up your strategy when you do that, but he was actually yelling at him, and Bannister said that he was concerned all the way into the 3rd lap. He was afraid that the pace was not going to be fast enough, and he remembers hearing a voice from the crowd as he runs by during that 3rd lap and yells at him and says, "Relax." And he said, almost automatically his body, because his mind heard those words, his body began to relax. He's halfway through the race. He felt so relaxed, he said it seemed like his mind was almost detached from his body. And at 3/4 of a mile, so after 3 laps, he said that the effort was still barely perceptible. But he said, "I was going to pay for it later." He starts on that final lap. And when he comes to the end of the 3rd lap, onto the beginning of the 4th lap, the thought hit him. You know what? 4 minutes is possible. 4 minutes is possible. But he would have to run that final lap in 59 seconds. On the back straightaway of the 4th lap, Bannister moves into the lead. One of the other runners had passed him before the lap run, or the pace runner had dropped out. He takes the lead. He said, "My mind raced well ahead of my body, and drew me compellingly forward. I felt that the moment of a lifetime had come. That's how I want you to feel about 2018. I want you to feel yourself just being drawn forward, and that there is a moment of a lifetime that is at hand that you need to be ready for. He crossed the finish line that day, 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds, and was the first man in history to run a sub 4-minute mile. He believed that he could do it. And equally as important is that everyone else knew that it was possible. The times in the 1 mile were coming down over decades very slowly. You know how long his record lasted? 46 days. Because people knew that it was possible. In fact, since that time, there have been 18 new records. Not 18 people that have run faster than him, but 18 times the new record has come down since then. And the last one was in 1999, and that time was 3 minutes, 43.13 seconds. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 12 refers to Jesus as the perfecter of our faith. And in chapter 11, verse 1, he says this about faith. He said, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see." Now, whether it's that you set your sights on something that's never been done before, or whether you're facing something that you've never seen before, you need to believe that God is able. So if 2018 is going to be the best year ever, you need to believe and have faith that whatever God calls you to do, even if no one has ever done it before, you need to believe that it is possible. The scripture says all things are possible for him who believes. Scripture says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. We need to believe that whether he's calling us to do the impossible or whether we are facing what appears to be something that is insurmountable, we need to believe that God is able. If we're going to have the greatest year ever. The third thing, and I'm going to have the worship team come forward. Don't panic because I'm not done. But they're coming forward because it just happens to be the best time for that to happen. Here's the third thing that you really have to decide. Got to get out of your comfort zone. Okay, if 2018 is going to be the best year ever, you got to get out of your comfort zone. Okay? It just has to happen. I love the saying, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. So I'm going to share a story with you, and it's a personal story. Kind of struggling with sharing it, but I'm going to share it. And I want you to know, I appreciate the joy and the opportunity to stand before you here most every week. I don't take it for granted. After this experience happened to me, I really wanted to come home and hug each and every one of you, and you'll understand that in a minute. But I was contacted by a friend a few weeks ago, and through a series of events that I won't even go into, he relayed to me that I was receiving an invitation to speak to the Green Bay Packers. Not the whole team, but at a chapel service the night before a game. And when he sent me an email and it said, urgent, the Packers need you. And we used to do stuff like this to each other years ago. You know, hey, the Packers called and they need you this weekend. We used to play jokes on each other, with different friends that I had. And I called him up and I said, what are you talking about? He said, no. He said, really? He said, and he's actually related to the Packers chaplain in Green Bay, who pastors the church there, and he said he doesn't have anybody to preach the night before the Cleveland game in Cleveland, and he wanted to know if you would be willing to do it. And so this friend of mine was the contact. That's how it all happened. And so I had to check with my schedule, and I'm really thankful that Mike Murray from Chi Alpha, I had him scheduled to speak actually a week different than that, so we just swapped our schedule a little bit, and so I was able to call the chaplain and say, yes, I'm able to come. I was able to move my schedule. So Isaac and I drove 600 miles to Cleveland, okay? Now, I'm a homeboy, okay? I'm a homebody. I'm a home guy. I called my wife or texted my wife while we were gone, and I said, I am just lost without you. I am not a big city guy, okay? I'm a home guy. That's me. So this was, for me, this was way, way out, okay, of my comfort zone. We're in a big city. It's people that I don't know, and it's people that I actually watch, okay, on television. I watch them play their sport. And so I got there. We got there Saturday afternoon. We go to the hotel room, and if you know me, I gotta iron clothes. I've gotta cut my hair. That's just my thing on Saturdays. That's what I do. And so I'm going over my notes, and I'm supposed to meet my contact person at 8 o'clock. Chapel is at 8:30 Saturday night. And so I go to the third floor, and I walk in, and there's curtains are up, so that people can't see from the elevators into that area, and I walk in, and I looked at the first guy that I saw, and he said, "Chapel?" And I said, "Yes," and he pointed me to the room, and it took me a second, but it was the president of the team. And I just walked by the guy like no big deal, and I walked in the room, and I met my contact, who happened to be the vice president of sports medicine, worked for the team for over 30 years, been in the NFL as a trainer for 40 years, and he proceeded to tell me every horror story that he could think of from Chapel from the last 30 years. Okay, it's terrible. I'm like, this cannot go well. There is no way that this can go well. And I'm and I have Isaac, and Isaac's out in the hub too, and Isaac is sitting on the front row, and Isaac was just, he's ready to pop, okay? He is just excited about being there. And so some of the guys, file in, and I shake a few hands, and it's just they're just quiet, and they take their seats. And so the sports medicine guy gets up, and he he just kind of thanks us for coming, and he prays a brief prayer, and then that's it. We start. Okay. Now, I have been given 30 minutes. Chapel is 30 minutes long. Okay. I have my timer on. Okay, and I have things set. Okay, this works for me. All right. Okay. The podium that we use Christmas Eve, I can't stand that podium because it's so high and I can't see over it, okay? It's just, this makes me, I'm comfortable here. I didn't have this. I should have brought this, okay? But the table was kind of behind me, and it's hard, okay? It's just, I am not comfortable. It's 8:30 at night. I'm used to preaching at 10 in the morning, okay? I'm used to things happening a certain way. I have my oatmeal in the morning, and I get here, and that's how I do it, right? And now I'm all thrown off my game. And here I am in a room with 32 or 33 players and coaches from the Green Bay Packers, and I'm supposed to be the guy bringing them God's word that day. And so this is tough. And these guys are already ready in their minds for the game, okay? They're not smiling and joking and laughing, okay? Let me tell you something. When you guys respond, it makes a difference in the whole room. okay? When my dad comes here, my dad was here Christmas Eve. When my dad's here, you know what? He actually makes a difference for some of you because he responds to me so quickly because I'm his oldest kid, okay? I understand that. He's totally for me. I get that. But that makes a difference. Nobody was laughing. Nobody, listen, it was as serious as a heart attack, okay? And I preached the message that I felt God told me I need. In fact, the whole time I prepared the message, which was from the first Sunday in December, the whole time I'm preparing it, I just feel God saying, this is what you're supposed to preach to the players. And so I was excited. I thought, man, this is going to be great. And my message was, the 3 points were, don't celebrate too early, never give up, and finish well. Okay? And so I preach the message and I get done. Players, file out, and you can tell the ones that had good parents and grandparents because they all filed by the preacher and they said thank you, and they filed out, and and they said there's no pictures, you're not a fan, you're there to share the word of God. Okay? And so afterwards, I was just kind of, and I had to be done. I forgot to tell you this. I had to be done because the team meeting starts at 9 o'clock. And the sports medicine guy said, at 9 o'clock, he said, I'm getting up. And they're all going to follow me into the next room where the team meeting is at 9 o'clock. He said, because the fine for being late is $1,500 a minute. Okay? So I got to finish. It's hard, okay? I'm on a tight time schedule. I preached 21 minutes and I prayed, okay? I was nervous. I did not want to get close to that mark. I get done. They file out. I'm there talking with the VP of sports medicine, and he goes, I can't make this up. He says, boy, you really brought the wood tonight. And I didn't know what he meant. Now, if we were playing ball, I would get that. But I just preached. Okay? I don't understand exactly what he meant, and I didn't ask him. And so for the next 4 hours, I was in, I'm just going to say it, I was in agony. I'm not kidding you. Isaac is my witness. He's conveniently in the other room. And I would go, oh. And the first time I did it, he goes, Dad, what's wrong? And I said, Isaac, I don't know. I'm worried about how they might have taken what I said. I'm really concerned. And he said, Dad, you did fine. You don't need to worry about it. He just turned 14. Okay, that's pretty good for a young man. I bet he said that to me throughout the night 15 different times. I am not exaggerating. I am not making it up, okay? I kept going, all night. We went to dinner. We drove clear out to the burbs for dinner. We came back to the hotel, and he said that to me over and over because he knew that I was really struggling. Because I didn't come there to put a hit on anybody. And that's what those words meant to me. And I struggled on the way home. Same thing, I continued to struggle. Well, all night, okay, we get up the next day, we go to the game. There's a great play in the fourth quarter or in overtime, and we are jumping up and down, we are screaming, okay? Because it looks like the Packers are going to have a chance to win this thing. It's in Cleveland. There's Packer fans everywhere. We're jumping up and down screaming, and I said, never give up. And I'm yelling this, okay? I'm not yelling it now. Never give up. Finish well. And I'm just, and Isaac goes, they heard you, Dad. They heard you. They heard you in chapel. Because the play in the overtime was an interception, and it was just, we were so excited. The Packers go on to win the game. It was wonderful. We literally get in our car. We drive home. We leave at 5 in the evening from Cleveland, pulled in at 3 in the morning. into Marquette and got a few hours of sleep, and I was still really struggling because I thought, Lord, I failed. I failed. You called me there, you gave me this opportunity to preach the word, and I failed. And I'm talking my dad, I'm talking to my brothers, I'm talking to the guy that brought the opportunity about, and I'm saying, man, I'm struggling. I think I failed here. And they're trying to encourage me. Isaac has encouraged me. And I thought, I'll never do this again. I'm just being honest with you, okay? Maybe the snowstorm was just so that I feel a little more comfortable with a few less people today, just to be able to share with you the truth is that I thought I failed. I really felt like I blew it. And I said, I'll never do that again. I thought, I'll never get the opportunity anyway, so it really doesn't matter. The next day I get a phone call from my youngest brother, who I had talked to the night before, and he said, I want you to open up the link I just sent you. And I said, okay. Opened up the link, and it was from Packers.com. He said, I want you to play the video while I'm with you on the phone. So I hit play, and they're breaking the play down. Okay, the play in overtime where there was the interception, the biggest play of the game, really. And so they break the play down, and they show the interception, and the interception was by a guy named Josh Jones, who I don't know who he is. And then all of a sudden, they bring his voice in, and then they cut to an interview to him in the locker room. And he says, we had a good word in chapel last night. And he said, what I took away from it was never give up. Now, I had done everything in my power to make this not about football in my message, okay? And I was telling my dad that, and my dad said, yeah, but their whole life is football. He said, they're going to take it and make it about football, okay? And so he said this, and I was in awe. Not of him, but that God would answer in the midst of my struggle. That he would let me know that I didn't fail. That I stepped out doing something that's way bigger than where I am and what I do. And to do it in his name, and that it's okay. And my friend said, it's literally like God answered your prayer with an email. There are going to be moments in you are going to regret. You're going to step out and you're going to say, God, you've given me this opportunity. I'm going to step out, and I'm going to guarantee you're going to regret it sometimes. It's going to be a big one. And you're going to say, okay, Lord, you've given me this opportunity. I'm going to step out, and you're going to think, this is not going very well, and I wish I'd never done it. I'd have left Cleveland before the game. I'd have left the night of it. I would have left, and I know there's only one reason that I did not leave. One reason, and it was having to face my wife. And she knows it, because she would have said, Kevin, your son is with you. You need to take him to that game tomorrow regardless of how you feel. And that's the only thing that made me stay. You're going to regret stepping out. There's going to be that moment. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 and 10. This is in light of Paul's 3 times praying that God would relieve his thorn in the flesh. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. This is Paul saying this of Jesus. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardship, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Did you hear that? When I am weak, then I am strong. That does not make sense to me. God's power is made perfect in our weakness. So here's what I'm going to say about that. If you never get to a place where you are weak, God can never get to a place where He is strong in you. God was pretty strong that night because I was convinced I was a dismal failure. In a moment where I got Coach McCarthy on the right, okay? I got the defensive coordinator, the team president, the special teams guy. Our family's favorite Jordy Nelson's right over here. And you guys, you see how I preach, right? I go back and forth. Every time I got to this side, Sherry, guess who was sitting right where you are? Clay Matthews. He's a big name on the Packers. And these guys are tough. They don't back down for anything. They're staring a hole in you. And I answered all the tough questions. I said, I'm 5'4", $150. I said, I'll never do that again. I can do all things through Christ, who gives me strength. There's going to be things this year, and you say, why did I step out and do that? When you are weak, then He becomes strong. That's why. That's why. So if 2018 is going to be the best year ever, then you're going to have to look at it differently. You're going to have to stand in the face of them saying that, you know what? It can't be done. It can't be done. You're going to have to stand in that. And you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone and be willing to even agonize when you feel like you failed. I don't know about you, but I have such anticipation about this year. I think 2018 is going to be an amazing year. And I want that to be not for my life, not just for my family. I want it to be for you personally, for your family, for our community. There's things happening in this town that just tell me that God is moving. They might seem like physical things, but the physical and the spiritual relate to one another. There's stuff happening in our town. Our town's never going to be the same again. I want it to be the best year ever. For Silver Creek Church, I want it to be the best year ever. God is laying things on our hearts that we're going to be bringing to you in the weeks to come. It's going to be the best year ever. But there will be moments. There will be moments when we feel like we're standing and looking at an impossible thing. People are going to say it can't be done. People are you're going to feel yourself like, man, this is too hard. It's too much. Whether it's your personal life, your work life, your family life, the community, your church family. But I believe it's going to be a great year. And I want you to be included in that. I want you to stand with me. I've taken a little more time than I usually do. Forgive me for that. I just want to close in prayer. Whether you're in the hub or here in the sanctuary, say, Pastor, man. Maybe for you, maybe it's a want. You want it to be the best year ever. Maybe you need it. I need this to be the best year ever. but that's on your heart. As we close this service, really just very briefly, I wasn't going to do this, but I just feel compelled. If that's you, and God has just sparked something in your heart, and you know that it's either there is a desire and a hunger that's there, or a downright need, because you need to have it. You need to have a best year ever in your life. And you want to submit that to the Lord. I'm just going to ask you, whether you're in the hub or whether here in the sanctuary and you feel compelled, I want you to come and step forward to this altar just as a way we're wrapping up 2017. It's going to be gone tomorrow. We'll never be able to touch it again. Thank you for watching the message today. If you've accepted Christ as your personal Savior, or if you have questions about your personal walk with Jesus Christ, we'd love to help answer those questions. We've prepared something specifically for you. It's a 5-day devotional called Walk by Faith. We'd love to give you this as our gift to you today. Please contact us using the information provided for you on the screen. May God bless you.